Cray Cross Epic, Chapter 1, Hero from Whom, Episode 1, Beginning. It was quite difficult to set that tree alight. It was even said that with 7 times the amount of flames from a furnace, it still would not burn. Thus, it was called the Nanakamado, a Japanese rowan. Due to its fire resistance, in some regions, it is planted in gardens as a fire-retardant tree. Frankly, I think that's an overestimation, Rowowa wailed in his heart as he ran as fast as he could through the golden wheat field. He looked unreliable, his body thin, and his sword skills so-so. When it came to things he could be proud of, yeah, honestly, there was nothing. That was the conclusion he came to after living for 17 years. Though the one who had raised him always said something like this: "Your body will not burn, so set alight your soul, Rowowa, the Rowan Bioroid." Similarly, running as fast as he could along the wheat field roadway, a young man hit Rowowa on the back. The large man named Olivi was an olive Bioroid. Both his height and physique were at least twice of Rowowa's. "Even if you say that, this is definitely going to burn us." Out of breath, his vision wavering, even so, he could not stop his tangled legs. After all, the insect whose entire body was alight with flames, Burner Ant, was pursuing them from behind. "You nuisances! Nuisances!" While shouting, the 3-meter-tall giant ant let out flames. The fire caught on the hems of their clothes, and their clothes burst into flames. Ouch! Ouch! Hot! Hot! Why was this happening? As he did a strange tap dance to put out the fire, like a revolving lantern, Rowowa's memories came back to him. It was just this morning, as the duo traveled around planet Cray, they overheard a conversation in the Thuri district. "There's a burner ant rampaging in the wheat fields. Everyone is afraid of it, so no one will go near it. It's good that the field hasn't been destroyed yet, but I wonder when it will be burned down." By his side, Olivi, his foster parent and older brother, was clenching his fists tightly, his virile face full of righteous indignation. His intense olive-colored eyes seemed to be burning with flames. "Hey, Olivi," Rowowa softly called out, as he had an unpleasant premonition, and unfortunately they often came true. "Let's go and take down Burner Ant." And that was what they set out to do. But of course, it would not work out that way. After all, neither of them were very good at fighting. Bioroids were a race of those who had plant factors. Their appearances was similar to that of humans, wearing the flowers and leaves of their alter ego on their hair and body. Olivi was an olive Bioroid, who looked to be in his mid-20s by human standards, with olive leaves curling around his hair. A pendant that looked like a ripe black olive fruit swung across the chest of his worn clothes. He carried a longsword, though it had never seen use in battle. At most it was used to clear away obstructive overgrowth blocking an animal trail. Then there was his younger brother Rowowa, who would turn 17 this year, his green hair decorated with the leaves and berries of the rowan, and he had a rather pitiful expression on his face. His eyes and nose were clean cut, as was the characteristics of his race, but his unconfident atmosphere left a weak impression. He too carried a rapier, with a hilt decorated with rowan, but he could not even remember the last time he used it. It could be said that it was far too reckless for these two to challenge Burner Ant. After looking through the wheat field, they finally ran into a deep irrigation channel. Looking behind them, Burner Ant was gradually approaching them, spewing a thin cloud of smoke. Olivi's face twisted in anguish. "If this is it, then it can't be helped. I'll have to use my last resort." The reassuring words of his older brother as Rowowa turned towards him. With expectations, Olivi outstretched his arms, grabbing him by the torso. With no time for resistance, Olivi threw Rowowa, not across the canal, but instead at Burner Ant. "Go, Rowowa! Headbutt!" "What? The clincher, Rowowa's stone-hard head. With excellent control, it was a direct hit on Burner Ant's head, as its large body shook, then fell to the ground. So far, so good. It would seem like most of its brain cells had been called to the heavens, though it would be best to give it the benefit of the doubt. The problem began from here. "All right. Ow." As Roa stood up while holding his head, something hit his toe. It was Burner Ant's arm, which was still on fire. Ah! The arm that was kicked away touched the dry wheat field. In that moment, the wheat grains burst into flames. Unfortunately, it took several hours for the fire to be extinguished, and the surroundings were left burnt to the ground. Upon returning to the village, Roa bowed his head so deeply and profoundly that it touched the ground. I'm so sorry. Heave ho, it's okay. It was only a matter of time before it would burn them away. It was the turnip dryad, Heave Ho Turnip, who said this in a troubled yet gentle manner. A dressed-up turnip with 4 limbs, round eyes, and a cute mouth. Dryads were spirits, born from plants, most of them engaged in daily farm work, working hard to maintain food production. While Roa was apologizing at the front of the wheat store, many carts loaded with vegetables were passing by on the road. They were in Thury, a rural area in the westlands of Zoo. Though there were no scenic beauties or local specialties, the soil was rich, and the Dryads had built a fine village where they made a good living. More than 90% of the food on Cray was produced in the lush green nation. Zoo and the Dryads held everyone's stomachs as the food supply of Cray. That's what I told him too. Roa mentally sighed at his older brother, Olivia, who was behaving brazenly while next to him, but for some reason, he could not come to hate him. He was aware that he lacked the ability to pull attention to himself and lively communication skills. How have things been these days? Is it really just the usual around here? I've heard that it's been pretty tough in Dragon Empire and United Sanctuary. I guess it doesn't matter since they're across the ocean. When Olivia threw in some small talk, Heave Ho Turnip put its hand on its chin as if it were troubled. Heave ho. We've been trying to keep things as normal as possible, though. Anxiety is anxiety. But if we don't go on as normal, everyone will go hungry. Oh, that's true. I hold great respect for what you guys do. If you have any problems, just let us know and we'll do whatever we can. Heave ho. There are none. Oh. As Olivia made a fool of himself, Heave Ho Turnip shrugged their shoulders. It seemed that they were far from trustworthy to it, so we'll leave it at that. We're thinking of heading to the next village by the end of today. Olivia gave a slight bow. This is how the two of them lived their lives, traveling from village to village. If someone was in trouble, they would do their best to help, and after the problem was solved, they would go to the next village, and so it went on. Honestly, the most of them could not be solved. As Olivia turned to leave, Heave Ho Turnip gripped his sleeve. Wait, I also run an inn. There must be a chance encounter. You should stay overnight. No, sorry. It won't be as much as a gold I lost from the wheat that was burnt. So you say. By the way, how much is the stay? Heave ho, 1 gold coin per person. That much? 1 gold coin would be 10 days. Or if it were bread, 300. No, never mind. Yeah, the inn is this way. While they were being guided by Heave Ho Turnip, Roa whispered in Olivia's ear. Hey, Olivia, 1 gold coin is way over our budget. I know. Sell this if something goes wrong. With an expression of anguish, Olivia clutched the pendant on his chest. It was a black stone that resembled an olive fruit, with the fine milled gold work that surrounded it shining. Heave Ho Turnip, who was walking in front of them, glanced at it. You wouldn't be able to sell such a dirty necklace like that. Did you hear us? Heave ho. That's right. There has been a problem. Heave Ho Turnip pointed to the cobblestone paved crossroad. Following the tip of its finger, they saw that the stone had been scraped away, leaving behind what looked like huge furrow. It seemed to go all the way to the outskirts of the city. There have been a lot of those strange marks lately. Not only the roads, my wheat and turnips have also been destroyed. Who could be doing it? If you could find them, punish them. You got it. Leave it to us. Olivia responded with a voice of token cheerfulness, but his eyes carried a sharp light, with an unprecedentedly serious look. Roa called out to him. Olivia? What's wrong? Why such a look? It's nothing. Olivia laughed, hitting Roa's head. Do many people remember the day that they were born into this world? Roa, at the very least, remembered it vividly. Yo, kiddo, sleep time is over. The young man's voice was rough, impolite, and no consideration to the other party. The consciousness wrapped like a cradle by thin, large leaves slowly awakened. Of course, the man would not allow even a gentle awakening. So wake up! Morning! Morning! Good morning! With those last words, his toes came down, ripping the thin leaf membrane that had enveloped the boy, and like that, he was kicked into the outside world. This was the first memory of his life. Bioroids do not have fathers or mothers. They were born wrapped in plants. Standing in front of him was an olive bioroid, a black pendant shining on his chest. The name's Olivia. Feel free to call me Oni-chan. Oni-sama works as well. Olivia? That's it. Even though a bioroid was born in a grown-up form, their brain could not keep up with such a rapid development. The stranger's bravo was frightening, and he looked around as if to ask for help. He could not help but let out a scream because of the horrible scene spreading around him. Originally, it was a forest with a good view or something, but now the low-laying vegetations were gray and withered, and the trees had lost all their leaves. A sweet, rotten smell filled the air, enough to make one feel sick to the stomach. Birds, insects, and everything else that could be called life were dying as far as the eye could see. One could only imagine that they had been overrun by some tremendous force. In the midst of all this was a scene of himself, holding his knees like a tightly closed bud, and the man stood arrogantly before him. By the way, had I left you alone, you too would have perished. It's a pity you were born in this time. My condolences. What should I do? Do you want to help? Help? To this day, he still wondered why he could not answer that question by reflex. Was it because he was newborn and was not yet capable of making decisions? Was it because he was too afraid of Olivia to speak up? Or was it because he did not want to live? Answer. Yes. Okay, however, there are some conditions. You're going to come with me to fill this world with life. Fill with life? Again, like a powerless parrot, he could hear the words, but could not comprehend what was being said. What's with the look in your eyes? Saving others is a great and outstanding thing. You look as if you think I can't do it. Olivia smiled, puffing out his chest. I'm not trying to be like the famous Blaster Blade. Even if I try my best, that would be impossible, but still. Olivia grabbed the boy's hand and pulled him up forcefully. The boy managed to get up on his 2 feet, almost tripping over himself. A breeze filled with ashes blew past him, caressing his cheek. We too can help others. No matter how small or trivial it may be, the world is wide. Ain't that right, partner? Uh-huh. Okay, from now on, your name is Roa. Standing back up, even if you are burned 7 times. Roa of the Rowan. This was his first encounter with Olivia. He would later learn that the trees had died due to an unknown catastrophe, and that Roa was the only bioroid to survive. It was a miracle that he was rescued from the cradle and was able to be born. Since then, together with Olivia, they had traveled around the world for 17 years. In that time, he saw many different peoples and lands. United Sanctuary, a holy nation that fused faith and technology and valued justice and order. The regular army, royal paladins, possessed many knightly orders who worked hard to maintain the security of the country. Dragon Empire, with vast territory that stretched from east to west. It was an empire ruled by dragons with great power, with the first pillar army, Kagero, at its head. Stargate, a large nation, located at the southernmost tip of the planet, a land where cultural exchange with other planets flourished. It was home to many clans that excelled in science and technology, such as Nova Grappler and Dimension Police. It was also the country where the Link Joker, who tried invading planet Cray during the Great Star War, had been residing ever since. The Dark Zone, a nation ruled by the Demon King through magic. This is also where the Spike Brothers, a clan of players from a popular sport on planet Cray, Gallus Bowl, and Pale Moon, a glamorous nightmare circus troupe, operated. Magallanica, filled with the inhabitants of the sea, including pirates and the navy. It was an archipelago nation, where immortal inhabitants, such as zombies, lived. Furthermore, the idle unit Bermuda Triangle, made up of adorable mermaids, could soothe the heart of any person. And last but not least, there was our zoo. As aforementioned, it was a food-producing nation and was home to great nature, the academic capital of the High Beast. It was also the base of the Megacolony, a criminal group of insects like Burner Ant, whom Rowoa and Olivia met. As they journeyed from village to village, nation to nation, Rowoa and Olivia did what they could. There were times when they did maintenance on armor, fought a kraken that plagued the village, and cut tickets for a circus. It was just not once or twice that they had been in danger. Wasn't that amazing? Chronos Command Dragon. Don't they say that he was summoned from the future to help the Chronojet Dragon? No. We could have died if we got involved. In the course of their travels, they had seen heroes, whose name they had only heard of, fight in the distance. Of course, as Rowoa stated, the correct action for the general public to take was to keep as far away as possible. As one could see, Olivia was brimming with curiosity. Even so, the fact that they did not end up in a fatal pinch was as expected. Compared to Olivia, who was unexceptionally good at getting the gist of things, Rowoa just could not get the gist of things. Whenever he whined about it, Olivia would laugh. It's only natural. You're only 17 and your head is still but a bud. How old do I look? 25? Maybe a bit more? Are you 27? 1,005 years old. No, maybe I'm 4. That's a joke. Not funny, Olivia. What? That's how much respect you should have for me. So give me that juice. I don't want to. It's going to spill. Stop it. As usual, Olivia made jokes and comforted Rowoa in a way he did not recognize, but the feeling of, what should I do, never went away. Today was no different, and he had ended up burning the wheat field. The flames that had flared up as soon as the fire was lit still lingered in his mind. Perhaps it was because he was a bioroid, but the burning of the field that had been carefully cultivated was more painful to him than having his own body cut down. Can't sleep. Rowoa laid in his bed at the end. The more he tried to sleep, the more flames came back to his mind. His eyes were alert from the unease. Glancing to his side, Olivia was sleeping, while heartily snoring. Can't eat anymore. What a cliche dream. While laughing involuntarily, Rowoa rose from the bed, putting on the jacket that was hanging and carrying his rapier. As he left the inn, while trying not to make a sound, he saw that no one was in the streets. The 2 moons that were supposed to be rising in the sky were nowhere to be seen. Perhaps it was a new moon, and the darkness was getting thicker. The wind was strong, and it made his heart flutter in his chest. Rowoa hurried down the road to the wheat field. The burnt field was covered with black ash, with no trace of the beautiful golden ears of wheat. Looking at the devastated scene again, Rowoa was lost for words. Unable to stand still, he knelt down on the ground and touched the field with both hands. No matter how bad a bioroid he was still a bioroid. They had the power to bless and nature plants with magical power. As if in prayer, he gathered all his power, and his palms became covered with a white, pale light that poured into the earth. But there was no reaction at all. That was when he looked up in despair. From ash-covered field, a young sprout emerged. Soon another, and another. Young wheat sprouts. Finally, lush green wheat grew from the entirety of the burnt field. Yes! However, just before the ears of wheat could appear, something strange happened. They stopped growing and turned black, as if rotting from their roots. In the blink of an eye, the wheat field turned from green to black, to white-gray, and then withered away. It was just like the scene of that day. Why? It was at that moment when Rowoa screamed out. He heard a huge mass dragging itself across the ground, and he heard a voice from nowhere. His feet collapsed under him. It was a repulsive sound that would make you feel as if you were being sucked into the abyss. Unable to speak, he slowly looked behind. Within the darkness was an unidentifiable unknown. Countless glowing eyes dyed with a murderous bright red. The unknown may not have been just one or two things. He could only guess from the sound of the dragging that it was something long and large. Suddenly, the huge ruts he had seen in the village came into Roa's mind. It couldn't be. Was it pursuing him? Why? The unknown spread open its dark red maw and laughed. His legs trembled, unable to move. His teeth chattered. As a biological instinct, he realized that he stood no chance against it, unable to run, scream, much less confront it. Oi, Roa! You're the one that told me to go with you when you pee at night. Olivia, I'm lonely, and I'm going to cry. The familiar sound of his voice faintly reached out to Roa, but his memory cut off here. The muffled sound of digging through the soil came to the ears of the slumbering Roa. The scent of the ground after the rain, the heavy feeling that deprived his body of freedom. Because of his mudding thoughts, it took him a while to realize that he was apparently in the ground. Somehow he managed to wriggle around and could feel the soil on his limbs moving. With another sound, the feeling of the earth on his face disappeared. Suddenly a flash of light shone through Roa's eyelids. Peering at Roa from above the hole into the ground was a girl holding a lantern and shovel. From appearances, she seemed to be the same age as Roa, and was probably a human. Her hair tied up high, and her strong-willed gaze were impactful. Using all his might, Roa somehow managed to raise his upper body from the ground. He stretched out his dirt-covered fingertips towards the girl. Are you... Where is... If there was a problem with the manner in which he acted, it probably was the fact that his whole body was covered in dirt, he looked like an eerie zombie, and the darkness of the night. The girl's fire-red eyes watched in astonishment. She tried to swallow her screams. She was not able to swallow them. The girl swung her shovel. Of course, she swung it at Roa. Wait a minute! His words were too late, and with a particularly dull-sounding echo, the cutting edge pierced through Roa's shoulder. As a result, Roa's left arm fell off and onto the ground. The screams of the now soundless girl resounded throughout. It went without saying that it took time for them to regain their composure. Bad. What? I said my bad. But you wouldn't normally expect to find a person buried in the ground. Are you one of those races, or is it a hobby? The girl clenched her fist, a stern look upon her face. I don't think it's a hobby. I don't even know why I was buried. In Roa's right hand was his torn-off left arm. Strangely enough, there was no pain. His left arm was shriveled like a dry radish, and seemed to have little function from the beginning. The cross-section of his shoulder also resembled a shriveled vegetable. His clothes were also in tatters, and like they would fall apart at any moment. Roa, who was dug up safely after the previous madness, could finally see where he was. They were at the base of a huge tree. Its roots had risen above the ground and were spread out, and the trunk was so thick that it was hard to tell at a glance how far it stretched into the sky. Was winter coming, or was it just an old tree? He looked up. He could see that the trees were sparsely covered with dead leaves, which scattered as the wind blew. Surrounding the huge tree was a stone brick building. As it was late at night, no one else could be seen with the flickering torch. Apparently, he had been buried underneath these roots, but without an idea why. When he tried to remember what happened before he lost consciousness, his head would hurt, unclear, as if covered in a mist. The last thing was, that's right, he ate dinner as usual and fell asleep. Then, where was Olivia? He squinted his eyes, trying to pull together the threads of his memory from then. Four! A small dragon jumped out from behind the girl. It had fur, the same color as the fire-red clothes she wore, with two magnificent horns. A small flame was burning at the end of its tail. The girl looked to Roa as she rubbed her cheek against the dragon. This is Momoke, a proud Kagero dragon. And I'm Rady Lena, the Drag Rider. Feel free to call me Rady. Drag Riders were knights of the Dragon Empire who fought alongside dragons. They were also known as Dragon Knights, with Nahalem and many others made a name for themselves. However, a Drag Rider fought while riding a dragon. To think they were dragons this small. How cute. Cute? When the girl's voice suddenly dropped, he realized that he had stepped on a landmine, and hastily changed the topic. Right. That's right, I'm Roa. I see. Why were you buried in such a place? That's what I'd like to know. You must be a very active sleepwalker, infiltrating the sanctuary and burying yourself in the ground. Sanctuary? Where are we? Here, right under a world tree. Indeed, it seemed that this big tree was a world tree. World trees were trees with strong magical power that existed in many places on the planet Cray. Under its influence, the surrounding trees grew plentifully, and the animals lived freely. Cities often flourished at the foot of a world tree, and priestesses existed to protect them. In his travel with Olivia, he had seen world trees from a distance, but this was the first time he had gotten this close. Did he get transported through time and space without realizing it? If so, he needed to go back to Olivia as soon as possible. What part of the zoo continent is this? East? No, perhaps the west? Zoo? Rady Lena burst into laughter. What kind of joke is that? This is Stokea. Western Stokea. Thury. Stokea? He parroted back the strange world. Rady Lena nodded. I mean, zoo has been gone for 3,000 years. Are you still asleep? Huh? Rady Lena nodded vigorously. Please wait, for it to be like that? 3,000 years was too big of a number to be realistic. Furthermore, for a nation as large as Zoo to have disappeared was too ridiculous to even as a joke. Just as he was about to grab her by the shoulders and question her, they heard sharp voices from the stone brick building. Who's there? Looking over, he saw a group of bioroids with torches in their hands coming towards them. It was a sacred area, so they must have been guarding it. Tch! What a noisy click of her tongue. Rady Lena violently grabbed something and threw it. With great control and a strong arm, it knocked down one of the guards. However, the thing she thrown was... My arm! Let's go, Momoke. Wah! Throwing her shovel and lantern, she ran away from the guards. When Roa followed after her, she gave him a blatantly disgusted look. Why are you following me? Because it feels like they're really angry. That's right, I knew it! At the same timing as when Roa was about to shout, he heard noisy voices saying, There they are! Don't let them get away! He was almost at a state of tears, but he would not cry. And so the world, of 3,000 years later, without any reasoning why, without a chance for a rebuttal, raised its curtains.